Hey everyone, welcome to Consider the Governed. It's August 11th, 2025, and Washington, D.C. is under military occupation and federal law enforcement occupation. So things are not looking bright in that aspect. We are much further along on the road of authoritarianism, dictatorship, whatever you want to call it, anti-democratic principles than any of us ever expected. So, obviously, we need to be protesting. If you can get to D.C., great. If you can't, find other ways. We need to keep hounding them. We need to keep amplifying all the atrocities and talking to people, talking between ourselves. And while we need to be doing that because we really need to stop this, we also need to be planning for the future. Because I honestly believe that if we do not have some concrete goals on what we want to see, what kind of lives we want to live, we aren't going to get as much support as we need to really make a difference for our lives, our children's lives, and all our descendants' lives. I feel very strongly about this, and I know we're very focused on fighting in the moment. But I do not believe that if we don't have a plan, an actual concrete plan that people can point to and say, I elected you because I wanted you to do this, then we're just going to be revisiting this in a decade, in 2 decades. And quite frankly, once is enough in my lifetime. I would have been happy without it at all. To that end, and this is just a start, as far as I'm concerned, vision statement, household of four can live on a single full-time income. Okay, we should be able to expect the things that we had a year ago. We should expect that our government is going to work to give us, clean and safe air and land and water and working conditions and help if we need it, because the poverty level we have too many people at the poverty level, not enough people above it. We have way too many rich people, and I'm not talking just, oh, well, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. I'm talking obscenely rich. They can never spend that money in their lifetime because they've been stealing it from us. We have been working for them for decades, and it's time it stopped. All right, and we can't get there all at once. I wish we could, but we can't because they've totally blown the deficit way out of the water. So we're going to have to get there incrementally. We're going to have to take steps, and we're going to have to know this is how we're going to go, and this is how we want to get there. But I want to see things like everybody gets medical care. We all have work and retirement benefits. Our kids won't have to worry whether or not they'll be able to afford to retire. Free public education. Um, I want free college education in a reasonable manner. 4 years of post-secondary, whether it's college or it's vocational tech or whatever it might be, at a state level. I'm not saying pay for the Ivy Leagues, but we should be able to do that. We should be able to help people with the extended learning to go get a medical degree because we're short on doctors, or a legal degree, whatever. We should be able to do that. We need to raise wages. We need to get the cost of living down. The problem is they've raised the cost of living so much right now, and it has historically been prices don't come back down, which means our wages have to come back up, or we have to offset in a different way. Okay? Nobody in our country should be going hungry or denied medical care. All right? So, goal for consent of the governed, hopefully, and hopefully it will spread and people will start talking about it, is to generate a comprehensive plan, putting writing the text of the laws with the end results in mind, and then we'll chunk it into smaller bits that we can do concurrently to get us there, because we will not be able to afford to do it all at the same time. I wish we could. All right, one of the first things we need to do is win every seat. Every seat we can, we got to retain or gain control of as many elected positions as possible at every level of government to have the greatest impact to correct the damage as quickly as possible. The reason is, in order to amend the Constitution, we need 38 state legislatures to ratify each proposed amendment. In addition, we need 2/3 majority in the Senate and the House of Representatives to make sure we can do this. Okay? Because quite frankly, I am tired of fighting fights I thought were over. Well, make sure they're over. We're going to put them in the Constitution. All right? But our priority needs to be, well, for who we support is going to hold a similar vision of where we want to go as a country, as the as constituents. Because I don't want to get rid of same-sex marriage. I don't want women to continue to be treated as second-class citizens. I don't want anyone to be treated as second-class citizens. So we need to fix the damage done and make the changes as complete and comprehensive as possible right away, because people are suffering now and they're going to suffer more until we fix this. So we don't have time for lots and lots of debate after we win everything back. We need to know what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. All right, for constitutional amendments, I'm going to go through a whole bunch of drafts because obviously we need to do the legalese and things like that. But you know what? We have lots of people in this country. And if we work together and from our different viewpoints and everything else, our expertise, we can come up with some really good things, much better than what we have seen in recent years. All right, this is the first one, and I'm heading right into what's going to be contentious. Person is defined as a living, sentient being existing outside a womb. I worded it that way specifically because we're coming into a technological age where we may actually see artificial wombs sometime in the next generation. So let's take care of it now before it happens. All right, all persons have the right to competent, affordable medical care. All persons reaching majority have the right to choose medical procedures for and to their own bodies in consultation with the chosen licensed medical providers. No branch of the government may impose medical restrictions on a class of persons unless it is to improve or safeguard public health, and those restrictions are supported by peer review and peer-accepted scientific studies. Said restrictions may include quarantine or vaccinations. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, right here, this takes care of women's right to choose, takes care of transgender, uh, anything that they do care-wise, the transition as they need to, or detransition, whatever they choose, don't care. It's up to them. Now, for all of you who think, well, no, we need abortion. These abortion laws that you have put back into some of these states are killing women. They're treating them as incubators. They are actually arresting women in some states for having miscarriages. That is insane. It's totally insane. And quite frankly, if you think you have the right to dictate to what someone else that you don't even know does with their body, that's terribly arrogant as far as I'm concerned. But obviously, that's not going to make the argument. It's not even going to make you change your mind, because we've had this argument for forever. Maybe one that might affect you will make the difference. One of the things you were taught when you become a union representative is that you protect the box. And that protecting the box is basically your basic rights, the laws, the statutes, whatever might be in your contract, whatever it might be. So if there is a situation where you actually might agree with what management wants to do, but they didn't do it the correct way, they didn't follow their own statutes or their own orders or their own directives, as a union rep, you can't let them do that. Because once you make the exception for one, or one situation, or one class, we'll say, you've opened the door to everyone else. So you must protect that box. Now, in the world of the Constitution, the amendments, all of that is the box. Every little bit of that. And you may think it won't happen to me. Well, you know what? A year ago, I didn't think I was going to see DC unfederalized. Who knew? The point is, there is nothing to stop them, especially when we have a Secretary of Health who is, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, insane. And then we've got someone like Dr. Oz in there who thinks we're paying way too much for medical and they don't want to pay for medical. They don't want to do things. So what happens if they decide, oh, you've been diagnosed with breast cancer? Well, no, chemotherapy and radiation, that might cause too much harm to any future children you might have. And it's too expensive. So we're just going to make sure you have a double mastectomy. No discussion, no nothing. You have no rights. We've decided this. We're going to put it into law. I don't know, personally, whether or not I choose to go through some such treatment. That's my decision. Do you think it should be yours? And if you think it can't happen, you better think again. Keep watching. They're talking about women submitting and women not voting. So you take away the rights for any woman. You've taken away your own rights as a woman, or you've taken away your daughter's rights, or your granddaughter's rights, or your wife's rights. And it won't stop with the womb. And there's no guarantee they won't have to come after something for men either. So you think about that. All right, all persons have the right to self-identify their own gender. Regardless of gender, consenting adults may marry and enjoy the same liberties, benefits, and rights of any other persons. There you go, same-sex marriage, whatever, trans, non-binary. It's nobody's business, the people who are living it. Human embryos for womb implantation shall not be genetically manipulated for the purposes of ensuring or attempting to ensure gender, physical characteristics such as color of hair, skin, eyes, whatever. You could basically, if it's not something that is life-threatening genetically, no, don't happen. Because you know what? I am so over this idea of eugenics. We should be. It does not matter. Either you're going to love a child or you're not. Either life is precious or it's not. And the same thing about human fetuses. Basically, that they shouldn't be genetically altered. But if there is something like there's a hole in the heart and they can, operate in the womb, then that would be accepted. Businesses, both domestic and foreign, and religious entities are not entitled to the same rights as persons and shall be significantly restricted by laws limiting their ability to influence politics and the will of the people in elections and governance. No person, no member of Congress, may serve in the House of Representatives and or the Senate for more than 30 years combined or past age 70, whichever is earlier. I didn't want to go with 30. I thought that was a little long, but there is a little bit of experience you would want in some cases, and you don't want to necessarily get rid of it. But 30's enough. It's over a generation. Get out. In the event that Congress fails in its duty to pass laws in a timely fashion to maintain continuous, uninterrupted operations and funding of the federal government and services to its citizens, no member of Congress shall be entitled to compensation for their duties until such time as said laws are passed. All these government shutdowns and continuing resolutions, they have not helped. You know what? Put some skin in the game for our senators and our representatives. You can't come to an agreement. You can't keep this government running at 100% for everybody else in this country. Then you don't get paid any more than the people who are forced to show up to work and not get paid, like air traffic controllers, because I did it a number of times in my lifetime. Rescission, congressionally approved funds will require a 3/4 vote of both the House of Representatives and the Senate. None of this stuff that Vought's pulling anymore. No, knock it off. If you can get 3/4, that's a different story. No member of Congress shall engage in trading of individual stocks or digital currency during their term and for a period of 3 years after their terms expire. Let's start taking care of some of the corruption. Members of Congress are prohibited from accepting a paid lobbyist or paid consultant position in any branch of the government for 5 years after the terms expire. Vice President, President, agency heads, same thing, 3 years, but then for the paid lobbyist and consultant, 10 years. And this is all. We can all discuss this. We can decide whether it's going to be more. It's going to be amended a little bit before where it needs to go. But we need to have some things down, ready to discuss. All right. Here's going to be another one that's going to be contentious. The right to bear arms of the citizenry does not include weapons of mass destruction or accessories that restrict the ability of law enforcement or armed forces to track the location of the use of weapons. Excluded items include but not limited to silencers, short barrel rifles, assault weapons, missile launchers, explosives, and bioweapons. Congress shall make laws to authorize the ownership or use of said items that, at a minimum, involve age requirements, background security, mental health checks, tracking of ownership and transfers, type of use authorized, and the conditions for revocation of said privileges. None of that is unreasonable. But I'm really, really tired of hearing of active shooter situations in our schools, on our campuses, in our workplaces, on the street. And some of this will help. But we need to actually make it to the point where the gun lobby does have not nearly as much say in how we do things. All right, the federal judiciary. Judges shall serve no longer than the last day of the month of their 75th birthday. This lifetime appointment thing, I don't have too much of an issue with that, except there is no cutoff. We've left it completely up to the justices or the judges, and that's unacceptable. And I'm not saying that people who are older can't do it, because, I mean, Harvey Wilkinson, early on, he wrote a brilliant, in my opinion anyway, um, opinion. And I think he's 84. But we need to cycle through. We need to get younger people in. We need to get people not holding on quite as long and affecting things for longer than maybe they should. Okay, this is the Supreme Court. One justice in the Supreme Court for every 25 million residents, as determined by the prior decennial census, for a maximum of 17 justices. They will serve no longer than 16 years or age 70, whichever is reached first, and have the option to return to an open position in a lower court after their term in the highest court is completed or earlier. Here's the thing. We need to cycle out Supreme Court justices on a regular basis. 16 years is just under a generation. I think that's reasonable, because then there will be people coming up, coming through. And it won't be this, it'll be harder, more difficult for the corruption. It'll be more difficult for people to hold on to shape in their own beliefs, we'll say, like we're seeing going on now. I mean, this goes through. I'd hate that we'd be losing Sotomayor, but I think it's fair. So we can discuss. All right, the shadow docket. All decisions made by the highest court must be accompanied with the basis of those decisions in writing and signed, so the lower courts understand and may abide by the highest court's intent. This just sending it down with no explanation. No, stop it. Nobody knows what's going on, including the lawyers. All right, I'm not going to read all of this, but basically, this is to start growing the House of Representatives again, because it stopped growing at, I think, 435. We'll need another building for that, but it's just basically, we need to be growing with our population, which has grown significantly. All right. No branch of the government may mandate, encourage, or expect any person or institution to subscribe, follow, or teach tenets of any single religion. There shall be no national religion. So all you Christian nationalists who think that we all should live the way you want us to live, no. We thought it was clear enough already in the Constitution. You're obviously not getting the fact that we don't want a theocracy. We don't want to live in a theocracy. And if we do choose to do so, it may not be Christian nationalism. Maybe we'll pick Buddhism. So keep your hands off and leave us alone. All right, this is for redistricting um, to take care of gerrymandering. Pretty much leaves it up to the states, but mandates they have to have an independent commission and with minimums of what, however, they're going to do it. They could still do it. They could, I think I had three from the two biggest parties and then three from no significant party. I mean, no, I don't want to say significant. That was an inappropriate word. No, there isn't one of the two largest parties. So they could be independent, so they could be whatever parties may be going on in that state. It does not matter. The point is that it is a nonpartisan commission. So yeah, I originally voted up as a total of 9. That doesn't stop a state. If they want to do 15, they want to do 25. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Just the minimums. Um, and also restrictions for how long they can be lobbyists and consultants and everything else. Because there shouldn't be that payoff there. You're either serving because you want to serve and do good for your state, your community, whatever it is. But if you're doing it for your own personal gain, we don't need you. So this is basically don't gerrymander. So that is the beginning of some of the things for consent of the governed. Hopefully it'll generate some conversation, but I really believe the American people as a whole need to know exactly what they're fighting for beyond democracy. If we take back the House, which I certainly expect us to do unless they totally mess up our free and fair elections, when we win back control, at least of Congress, and they've already put in all these terrible, the big bill, budget reconciliation bill, they put in some horrible things. People will be losing access to food, they'll be losing access to medical care, and it's just going to get worse, especially with the recession we're heading into right now. We don't have time for a lot of debate on how to fix it at that time. So we need to do the debating now. And we don't need to be doing debating just from the politicians' sides. We need to be doing it as citizens and saying, no, no more. No more treating someone like second class. I was really upset during the Obama administration. One, because he was more moderate than I had been hoping, but that's okay. I can live with it. He still made progress, even with everything was going on. What upset me most was all the racism and bigotry that all of a sudden was not so hidden. And I had honestly, and perhaps naively, thought that we were much further along as a nation. And obviously I was wrong. And from what I'm seeing now in our country, I was still very, very wrong in that. But I don't think it's as bad in some instances as from the average citizen's point of view. I don't believe that the majority of our country is that way. I don't even believe 60-70% of our country is that way. I believe the haters are really loud and they have a forum right now. But I believe that there are more good people in this country. I believe there are more sane people in this country. I believe a lot of people were disillusioned with politics, and I can't blame them. But backing off, not voting, or just voting because you want to own the libtards or you want to punish MAGA, those reasons are wrong. Either be part of the solution or shut up and get out of the way. Anyway, that is where I'm at today, and hopefully it starts generating some discussion. The pages on the site, anything that I've talked about, and I can link the video to, those will be active. You might see other links there, but they won't be active until I've made the videos. So, anyway, have a great day. Stay cool. Bye. I wanted to add that if you want to make comments or suggested revisions or anything on the website, there's a link to Google Docs, and you should be able to do it there. Other than that, I don't have any ideas on the Electoral College. I put that as a possibility, but if you have a suggestion for amendment for that, be happy to put it up so we can discuss. Thanks. Bye.